Morning, Jamie here with more Gutenberg tips and tricks. Today I'm going to show you how you can create some really cool call to action boxes using the Gutenberg Block Editor and no plugins whatsoever. So everything I'm going to show you today you can just achieve with the Block Editor. There's 3 designs that I'm going to show you how to build. I'm going to show them quickly now. This first one here, this is using the cover block. Then the second one down here, this is a cool design. This is great if you want the left-hand column or a column to have a full a photo that basically fills the entire column. This is actually using the media and text block and a few other tips that I'll show you how to do. And this final one is just using the columns block. So what gave me the idea about this was I was reading this cool article by Chris Lemmer, where she talks about building landing pages with Gutenberg, and specifically he was talking about building these little call to action boxes, and he was using Generate Blocks Pro to do it. But actually you can do this all just using the core Gutenberg editor and no plugins whatsoever, which is obviously great if you don't want to use plugins. I've also done a post on my website where I talk you through this in instructions and text, so I'll link to that down in the description below. But here we go. I'm going to show you one by one how I built each of these cool call to action boxes. I'm going to start with this top one. This is using the cover block. The other thing I should say is I've also created these on my website as block patterns. So you can actually go and download them. You can just copy them. You'll see here. Let me show you this. We've created this little option here where you can just go to each design and you can just copy that text and then use it on your own sites. We've created those as block patterns. So check out my post on block patterns if you want to learn more about those. But essentially you can just copy them into your own sites like I've done there. Okay, which is really cool. But let me build it from scratch so you can understand how it's actually being built. This is using the cover block, and let me just flick back to the design that I'm going to show you how to build. So this is this one here. So we're going to start by using the cover block into this page. So we're just going to search for the cover. The cover block is a really cool block. It's one of my favorite blocks. It's what's called a container block. Why that's useful is that we can nest other blocks within the block. So all I've done is added the cover block. Now with the cover block, you can choose a background color if you want to, or you can choose a background image. So I'm just going to choose one of my background images from my media library, and I think that's the one I actually use in the example. So let's use that. And basically that gives us our container. Now when you also add the cover block, it's going to add a little bit of opacity for you, which is quite nice because it just makes the text stand out. The other thing that the cover blocks does for you, which is quite useful, it will naturally add some padding. So it'll pad out from the text. So you probably won't need to worry about too much about adding padding around it. You might want to add some space above this title here and down here. But essentially what we do, we've added the cover block, and then the next thing is, because the cover block kind of expects you to write a title in here, but we don't want to do that. The first thing we want to do is actually add a columns block within the cover block. So as I said, the cover block, you can put blocks within it. So we're going to hit / and then we're going to search for columns. Okay, now the other way is we could have hit the plus up here and found the columns block and dragged it in, but we're just going to hit / find the columns block, and we're going to now add our columns. And that basically is setting the grid layout within the cover block. And then hopefully you can see it's pretty straightforward from this point on. In this left-hand column, we're just going to add an image block. Okay, this is now I've just added, in my example, I've just added an image of some person. Okay, there you go. And I think all I've done with that image is I probably centered it like so, which kind of, now in the example here, I've got a rounded image, which might look a bit nicer, but I'm working quickly today. And then over here on the right, all we're adding in here is basically a heading block. So I'm going to add the heading block like so. And I'm going to change the color of the text over here on the right in the block customizer to white. Then underneath that, I've just got a paragraph. Now these are obviously optional, what you put in here. You can put any blocks at all you like in here, but that's my subtitle text. And then under here on the right as well, I've just added the buttons block. So all I've done, now again, there's 2 ways you could do this. You could click on the plus sign, search for the buttons block and drag it across like so, and you'll see the little blue line, and that'll add the buttons in. Or you can just hit return, hit / and then buttons. So it's really up to you which way you do it. I've done it both ways in the past. It's really up to you. And then all we're going to do here is we're going to fill out this button text. So, get in touch or whatever you want. And then the final step on this is we're just going to change the background color because we want our button to stand out. That's the idea behind a call to action button, that it's kind of the most visible thing that you want on the page. And that's essentially our design done now. If we view the page, we should have, you know, a semblance of what I did there. Now, I think the only thing you might want to do on this, in this left-hand column, is you can center that image. So if I select the column here, can you see this little option here? That lets us align that image in the middle, okay, of whatever height that column, sorry, that cover block is. It's going to set that image in the middle there. And there you go. That's kind of what we've got there. I've obviously added 2 buttons into mine, but that's the first example. That's using the cover block and then the columns block within it. And again, in my post, which I'll put a link to in the description of this video, I've added the actual structure, so you can see for each example, you can see exactly what blocks you need and the hierarchy. There's the cover one. You see the hierarchy within it. So we've got the top cover block. Within that, we've got the 2 columns, and then we've got our other blocks within it. If you want to see this on your own sites, then the easy way to do it is using the list view, which is incredibly useful, which I've explained before, but let me just show you again. It's this option up here. So you click into the block that you want to see the list view on and click on these 3 lines here. There we go. Can you see that? So that's actually showing me the hierarchy that I've used to create that structure. So there we go. Let's move on to the next one, which is this example here, where we've got this lovely 2-column layout, but the left-hand column, the photograph in the left-hand column is filling the entire column. Right, so let's get into designing this one. So we're going to use the media and text block for this. So I'm just going to search for media and text, and it's this block here. Again, it's a core block, so we don't need any plugins for this. And again, this one will start off when you add it in here. It'll ask you to choose a photo from your library, which I'm going to do. You could upload one, but there's my photo. And that just basically puts the photo in one of the column, or the left-hand column. And then over here on the right, I'm just going to flick back to what we're after, is where we put our content. Now to start with, it's not going to look particularly attractive, but it will do once you've finished it. So that's my heading. Just pop that in, and all I'm doing for speed today, I'm just copying this text. I'm going to hit return and hit paste. I'm going to hit return, hit /buttons to add the buttons block again. And let's just put get in touch. Okay, and I'm going to just change the color of that button just like I did before. Let's make it yellow and black. Okay, so that's my kind of the basic thing, but there's a few things we need to do to make it looking kind of this nice, and that's this. First, we have to select the entire media and text block itself. Now you can either do that by just clicking on it and hoping you hit it, or you can hit on the list view and select this top option here. So that just lets us select basically the top level media and text. And then there's 2 things we need to do. The first is we need to change the background color, and that's going to change the background color of the entire section. But because we've got a image in the left-hand section, it'll look like it's just putting color behind the right-hand section, but it's working. And obviously you can choose any color you like here. I chose black, and actually I've chosen the wrong text color for my words. So let me just change those quickly. And the other thing which is absolutely critical for this is this. You have to select this option over here on the right, which is crop image to fill entire column. So you click on that. Now it's not going to look brilliant to start with, but what that'll do, it'll actually make that image fill the entire column that it's filling. If you don't do that, you're gonna have some of that background color appearing above and below here on the left. It's hard to demo, but you will see it most likely if you don't do this. And then the only other thing I did, I think, in this example is we want to add some space above here and above here. And to do that, all I did was add the spacer block, okay, which is just a block that lets you add space above and below. And let me just duplicate that. And then I'm just going to move it up using the up arrow here, above and below. Now, if you want to change the focal point of your image, you can just click on it and choose the option over here. You can do other cool things, like you can change the orientation with the media and text block, which is really cool. So if you want your image on the right or the left, you can just flick it across like that. You can also align your elements here into the middle. It'll probably do it by default. But there we go. That's kind of looking pretty cool. Again, it's gonna sort the padding out around here. So what you see in the editor won't look as nice as when you've actually published this. You'll see when I go back to the editor here, that see how it's looking like it's a bit tight here in terms of space, but it's going to add the margin and the padding for you automatically. So there we go. There's the second example, building a CTA using just the media and text block and a few little tweaks. Let's move on to the third one now, which is this option here, which is just using the core columns block. This is the third call to action box, and this is just using the columns block. So in some senses, it's kind of the simplest one. There is a little bit of tweaking we need to do with CSS to really just make this perfect. But let me show you how I built this. Okay, so we're going to start by just adding the columns block. So I'm just going to go / columns. And again, it's up to you which proportion you choose, but I'm going to use a simple 2-column layout. So I'm just going to choose that. Now the key bit to getting this work is we need to turn this into a group block, because once we transform this into a group, it basically puts a container around our 2 columns, and then we could add a background color. So as soon as you've added it, I recommend you do this. And can you see the little breadcrumb trail below here? If we select columns here, that's the key bit. And then we want to select this option up here, and that lets us basically transform that into a group. The columns still exist within that group, but what that means is it's kind of creating a container around those columns. And then over here on the right, we can actually set a background color. Now you can choose any color you like. I chose black in my example. And that kind of gives us our basic layout. Now in my article, in my post, I actually created a 1-column block and then put 2 columns within it, which will also work, but I kind of think this way it's probably a bit simpler actually. And then essentially we've got our grid layout, and we just follow the example of what we did before. So in this left-hand block, we add our image. We're just going to add the image block, and we're going to choose one from our library. I want to choose one of the relevant ones this time. So let me try and do that. Let's just try and get, yeah, here we go. So let's choose that. Just looks a bit better. And then we're just going to center that image. Okay, we're also going to over here on the right. This is basically, let me just see if I can just copy and paste all this text over here. And again, I've put all these as patterns on my own website, so you can just copy these to your heart's content. So if you want to use these on your own sites without having to recreate them, just go to my website and you can copy all the code. Then I added the buttons block here. Get in touch. See how easy this is. And then I'm going to change the background color and the text color. Now the only other thing we probably want to do on this one is we want to add some space above and below. So I'm going to add the spacer block below. I'm going to duplicate that once I've done it, and then I'm going to move one of them up above my title. Okay, now you'll see once I update and view this one, how we've got a little bit of, it's too tight on the right here. Now some themes will give you a bit of padding around there. This will be dependent on your theme a little bit. But what I've actually done in this one, and this is quite nice because this lets you tweak it a bit more, especially if you know a bit of CSS. Well, all I've done is I've selected the whole columns, the whole group block itself, and I've given it the, I've done it on this one. I've given it the class CTA. So you just put that in additional CSS. And then all you need to do, and I'll show you, and again, I'll give you the code to do this on my own website. There you go. Can you see how it's put the little bit of text around it? You see how it's created them into one, and it'll do that with the group block. So let me just add a bit of space in here so you can see that's a separate block. There we go, there's my call to action. You see how it's just put a bit of padding around it. And all I did with my CSS, and again, I put this on my own website, so you can just, if you do want to tweak a little bit in additional CSS here, all I've done is .cta, and then I've just put a bit of padding. Basically that pads out from the blocks within it. Okay, so there we go. There's three ways that you can create 3 really cool call to action boxes using the Gutenberg Block Editor and no plugins whatsoever. So have a go, see how you get on. Any questions, stick them in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, if you can give it a thumbs up, that'd be fantastic because it helps spread the word. And if you want to see more Gutenberg tips and tricks, hit the subscribe button because I'm trying to do 2 a week at the moment, and I shall see you all soon.